You were alone in the kitchen. You dropped your keys. And you said, "Okay, where did you go?" out loud. To no one. You didn't plan to say it. It just happened. But the real answer for why you did that is far stranger than habit. Your brain has been narrating your life since before you could read, since before you could tie your shoes, since before you even had real memories. That voice in your head, and the one that sometimes slips out of your mouth when you're alone, is not a glitch. It is one of the oldest tools your species ever built. Older than fire. Older than language as we know it today. What is it actually doing there? Start with a toddler. Watch one closely enough and you will hear it. A running commentary on their own hands. Put the block here. No, here. They are not performing for anyone. No one is listening. The psychologist Lev Vygotsky studied this exact behavior almost a century ago and gave it a name: private speech. He noticed something children do that adults mostly stop doing out loud, but never actually stop doing at all. Vygotsky's idea was simple, and it was radical for its time. He proposed that talking is not just something you do to communicate with others. It is something you first learn to do to communicate with yourself. A child doesn't master language and then, as an afterthought, start using it to plan. The planning comes first. The words are the scaffolding. And slowly, that scaffolding moves inward. The talking doesn't disappear. It goes quiet. It becomes the voice in your head. Here is the part most people never think about. That inner voice never actually left. It just got smaller, faster, more efficient. But under enough pressure, enough focus, enough exhaustion, it leaks back out into sound. That's why you talk to yourself when you're searching for lost keys, or assembling furniture, or trying to parallel park. The task got hard enough that your brain reached for its oldest tool. Think about what that tool is actually doing when it activates. It is not decoration, it is direction. Researchers have tested this directly. In one well-known study, psychologist Gary Lupien asked people to search for an object, like a specific brand of ketchup, in a store. Half of them said the object's name out loud while they searched. The other half searched in silence. The ones who spoke the word aloud found the item faster. Saying ketchup didn't just describe what they wanted, it sharpened their attention toward it. The sound became a spotlight. This is the part that reframes everything. You assume the voice in your head, and the one that occasionally escapes into the room exists to tell other people what you're thinking. But its very first job, the one it was built for, was never about other people at all. It was about focusing your own mind. Before language was ever used to connect two humans, it may have first been used to connect a human to their own intentions. Picture it further back. Your ancestors, tens of thousands of years ago, standing over a task that required more steps than their working memory could hold at once. Skinning an animal, building a shelter before nightfall, tracking a trail that kept splitting in different directions. A brain under that kind of load benefits enormously from a narrator. Not a narrator speaking to a tribe, a narrator speaking to itself, keeping the plan intact one spoken step at a time. Say the next move. Do the next move. Say the next move again. Somewhere along that evolutionary road, the narrating voice got promoted. It stopped being just a tool for solitary tasks and became the seed of full human language, the kind used to plan hunts together, warn each other of danger, and eventually build entire civilizations out of shared words. But the original private version of that voice never got deleted. It's still running underneath everything, like an old operating system your newer software was built on top of. That's the part that should stop you for a second. The conversation you're having with yourself right now, reading these words, is not separate from the conversation your ancestors had with themselves while sharpening a stone tool. It is the same mechanism, just wearing modern clothes. There's a psychologist working today named Ethan Kross who has spent years studying that inner voice, specifically the version of it that shows up during stress. He calls the noisy, looping version of self-talk chatter, the anxious replaying of an argument, the rehearsing of a conversation that hasn't happened yet. Kross found something counterintuitive in his research. The way you talk to yourself changes how well it works. When people use the word I while working through a stressful situation in their head, their stress tended to spike higher and last longer. But when they addressed themselves by name or used you, almost like a coach talking to an athlete, their stress dropped. Something about stepping slightly outside yourself, even just linguistically, gave the brain a kind of distance it couldn't get while trapped inside the first person. Why would swapping a single pronoun matter that much? Because your brain doesn't fully distinguish between a voice giving you instructions and a voice giving someone else instructions. The word you borrows the authority of every external voice that has ever guided you since childhood. A parent, a coach, a teacher. Saying, "You can do this," activates something different than saying, "I can do this." Because on some deep structural level, your mind treats you as coming from someone in charge. There's another researcher whose work sits right beside this, Charles Fernyhough, who has spent much of his career mapping what he calls inner speech. He found that the voice inside your head isn't one single steady stream. It shifts. Sometimes it's condensed, almost like a compressed telegram of half-formed words. Sometimes, especially under stress or during rehearsal, it expands into something closer to full dialogue, complete with a back and forth as if two versions of you are negotiating. That detail matters because it means the voice in your head was never built to be a monologue. It was built to be a conversation, even when there's only one person in the room. You are, in a very real sense, both participants. The one asking the question and the one answering it. The one giving the instruction and the one following it. Now come back to the kitchen. Back to you, standing there, asking your missing keys where they went. In that moment, your brain did something ancient, something that predates written history. It reached for the oldest trick it has for solving a small, immediate problem. Narrate it. And narrating pulls your focus into a tighter beam. It is the same instinct that helped a hunter track a trail and a toddler stack a block. Only the props have changed. So the next time you catch yourself muttering instructions to an empty room, or coaching yourself through a hard moment by using your own name, you are not being strange. You are running a program that has been in continuous use for the entire history of your species. Every generation before you used a version of it. Every generation after you will too. You were alone in the kitchen. You said, "Okay, where did you go?" out loud, to no one. But it was never really to no one. It was to the only person who has been listening to you since the very first word you ever spoke, yourself.